You know, they say the most earth-shattering moments of your life often start with the most mundane details. For me, it was the scent of a stranger's cologne. Something sharp and woody, clinging to my wife's hair as she kissed me hello on a Tuesday evening. A Tuesday. Not a Saturday night out with the girls, not a late work function. A Tuesday. Long day. Sarah had murmured, her embrace a fraction too tight, her cheek turned so our lips barely met. She smelled of her usual coconut shampoo, but underneath it, that foreign, masculine scent. Like a ghost in the room. Tough one? I asked, pulling back to look at her. Her eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes I'd woken up to for 12 years, darted away towards the kitchen. Yeah, just budget meetings. You know how it is. Endless. She slipped out of her heels, her movements fluid, practiced. But I saw the tremor in her hand as she placed them neatly by the door. I saw everything now. It's funny how suspicion turns you into a detective, how every tiny crack in the familiar landscape of your marriage becomes a canyon. Where are the kids? She asked, already moving away. Mom picked them up. Sleepover. Thought we could have a quiet night. I'd planned it. A bottle of her favorite Pinot Grigio was chilling in the fridge. I was going to suggest ordering from that Thai place she loves. A normal night. An attempt to bridge a gap I'd felt widening for months, a gap I'd stupidly blamed on stress, on work, on the kids' hectic schedules. Now I had a new, terrifying hypothesis. This is my story. A cheating wife story that isn't just about the betrayal, but about what comes after. The broken marriage drama that unfolds when you think you know someone better than you know yourself. That night, after Sarah fell into a sleep that seemed too deep, too eager, I lay awake. The digital clock cast a blue glow on our bedroom. Our bedroom. The room where we'd whispered our dreams, where we'd comforted each other through losses, where we'd created a family. Now, it felt like a crime scene, and I was the sole investigator. My mind raced back, sifting through memories, looking for clues I'd missed. The new gym membership 6 months ago. Just need to get back in shape, Mike. The sudden passion for late-night, work emails, on her phone, the screen tilted away from me. The girls' nights that started happening twice a month instead of once. I'd been proud of her. I'd tell my buddies, Sarah's really hitting her stride at work, finding herself again. I was such a fool. The next morning, I called in sick. A first for me. I was Mr. Reliable, the guy who never missed a day at the architectural firm. But the foundation of my life was crumbling, and I needed to know how deep the cracks went. Sarah left for work, giving me a peck on the cheek, her perfume, her own, familiar perfume, masking any lingering traces of the stranger. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I felt a cold clarity settle over me. This wasn't about rage yet. This was about evidence. This was about the truth. I started with her car. Nothing in the glove compartment. Nothing under the seats. But then, in the gap between the center console and the passenger seat, my fingers brushed against a small, metallic object. A USB-C charger. But not ours. Ours were black, tangled messes in a kitchen drawer. This one was sleek silver. And it had a tiny, stylized B on the end. A brand I didn't recognize. I held it in my palm. It felt heavy with implication. This was a hidden clue, a tiny piece of another man's life, left behind in the space where my wife sat every day. I pocketed it. Evidence. Next, the computer. We shared an old laptop for family stuff, bills, vacation photos. She had a password on her phone, but she was lazy with the laptop. I opened it, my heart hammering against my ribs. I went to the browser history. Deleted. Completely clean. Who deletes their browser history on a shared family computer? A person with secrets. But she'd forgotten about the cloud. Our photos were synced across devices. I opened the photo library, my stomach churning. There were the usual pictures, the kids at the park, a screenshot of a recipe, a selfie of her and her best friend, Chloe, at a winery a few weeks back. I clicked on it. Sarah was smiling, her head tilted back, laughing. She looked vibrant, alive. The way she used to look at me. And next to her, Chloe, arm around her. But something was off. I zoomed in. On Sarah's wrist, a delicate silver bracelet with a small turquoise stone. I'd never seen it before. I scrolled back through older photos. No bracelet. It was new. A gift? I felt a cold sweat break out. I needed to know more about Chloe. Sarah had known her for about a year, met her at a spin class. Chloe was divorced. Fun! According to Sarah, a free spirit. I'd only met her a couple of times at barbecues. She was loud, a bit brash, always teasing Sarah about being too settled. Now, her presence in my wife's life felt sinister. Was she an accomplice? A lookout? The day stretched on, a long, torturous crawl. I felt like a ghost in my own home. I looked at the family photos on the walls, our wedding day, me holding our newborn son, Lily on my shoulders at the beach. Each smile felt like an accusation. Was I not enough? Was I too boring? Too focused on providing a stable life that I forgot to make it an exciting one? This is the torture of betrayal and heartbreak. It isn't just the pain of the act, it's the relentless self-interrogation. That evening, I decided to test the waters. We were eating the pasta I'd made, the silence between us thick and uncomfortable. So, how's Chloe? I asked, keeping my tone light, casual. Sarah looked up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Chloe? She's good. Why? Just wondering. You two have been spending a lot of time together lately. She shrugged, twirling spaghetti on her fork. Yeah, she's a good friend. It's nice to have someone to talk to. Talk to about what? I pressed, a little harder than I intended. Her eyes narrowed slightly. About life, Mike. Work. The kids. Normal stuff. She took a sip of wine. Is there a problem? No problem, I said, backing down. Just making conversation. But the air was charged now. I'd poked the bear. And I saw it, a guardedness, a defensive posture I'd never seen directed at me before. It was in that moment I knew, with a sickening certainty, that my emotional relationship story was about to take a dark turn. The breaking point came a week later. A work conference, in a city 2 hours away. An overnight trip. She'd been packing with a little too much enthusiasm, humming a tune. I'll miss you, I said, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. It's just one night, she said, not looking up from folding a silk blouse I didn't recognize. I'll be back before you know it. I'd already made my decision. I'd taken the day off. I'd packed a bag of my own. I was going to follow her. The next morning, I watched her car pull out of the driveway. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then followed in my own sedan, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. This felt like a scene from a movie, not my life. But the nausea in my gut was real. She didn't take the highway towards the city. Instead, she drove to a part of town known for its boutique hotels and trendy restaurants. The North End. My heart sank. She pulled into the valet of a place called the Alexander, a chic, discreet hotel made of dark glass and brushed steel. I parked across the street, in the shadow of a multi-story car park. I felt like a stalker. A pathetic, heartbroken stalker. I watched her walk through the rotating doors, confident, beautiful. She didn't look like a woman going to a budget meeting. An hour passed. Then another. I was just about to give up, to drive home and drown my sorrows, when a familiar BMW pulled up to the valet. A BMW I'd seen before. At our company's summer picnic. It belonged to Mark, my wife's boss. The world tilted. Mark. Charming, successful, divorced Mark. The guy who always gave me a just a little too firm handshake. The guy who'd complimented Sarah's dress at the picnic a little too enthusiastically. I watched him stride into the hotel, a man completely sure of his welcome. And there it was. The truth. It wasn't an anonymous stranger. It was a man from our own world. The emotional breakdown I'd been holding back erupted silently inside the car. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel, a raw, guttural sound tearing from my throat. Tears I didn't know I had left streamed down my face. The evidence was no longer a USB charger or a deleted browser history. It was a man in a suit walking into a hotel to meet my wife. I sat there for what felt like an eternity. The initial wave of pain subsided, replaced by a cold, hard stone of resolve. I took out my phone. I took pictures. Of the hotel. Of his car. Time-stamped evidence. This was no longer just about my broken heart. This was about ammunition. I drove home, the world outside the windshield a blur. The house was deafeningly silent. I went to our room, to her side of the closet. I found the silk blouse still on its hanger. She'd packed a different one. And there, in her jewelry box, was the turquoise bracelet. I picked it up. It felt cold, deceitful. I thought about smashing it. Instead, I took a picture of it. Then I found the silver charger in my drawer and placed it next to the bracelet, photographing them together. A still life of infidelity. That night, when Sarah came home, she was flushed, her energy bright and false. "The conference was so productive," she chirped, dropping her bag. She came to hug me, but I stiffened. "What's wrong?" she asked, her smile faltering. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the faint smudge of lipstick on her collar, a shade darker than what she usually wore. I saw the glow on her skin. The glow of another man's attention. "Nothing, Sarah," I said, my voice flat, dead. "Just tired." The mask of the happy wife was cracking, and beneath it was a reality I was only beginning to comprehend. And I knew, right then, that the path ahead wouldn't be about tears or pleading. It would be about strategy. The question of forgiveness versus revenge in marriage was no longer a philosophical one. For me, it was becoming a blueprint. Sitting there in the dark after she'd gone to sleep, I realized something. The person you become after a betrayal like that, it's not someone you recognize. It's a stranger forged in pain. And that stranger was just starting to wake up. If you're still listening to my story, if you've ever felt that cold dread of suspicion, then you know how every second feels like an hour. Don't forget to like this video if you're with me so far. It helps more than you know. And comment below, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have confronted her right there? The days after my discovery at the Alexander Hotel were a masterclass in acting. I had to become the man I was before that Tuesday, the oblivious, trusting husband. I went to work, I came home, I played with the kids, I laughed at Sarah's jokes. But inside I was a vault, cold and impenetrable, storing every piece of evidence, every lie, every flicker of her deceit. I started recording our conversations. Nothing obvious, just my phone left on the kitchen counter while we talked about her day. I needed a record of the lies. "Mark was in a terrible mood today," she'd say, shaking her head while stirring a pot on the stove. "I think the pressure from the board is getting to him." And I'd nod, sipping my coffee, thinking, yes, I'm sure he was very stressed after his afternoon with you. I became an expert in her patterns. The gym sessions that now lasted 3 hours. The quick drink with Chloe. That turned into a 4-hour absence. I never questioned it. I was the supportive spouse. "You deserve some time for yourself, honey," I'd say, and the gratitude in her eyes was almost enough to make me vomit. But I had a plan. It wasn't enough to just expose her. Anyone can have a screaming match, a messy divorce. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I wanted the world she'd so carefully constructed, the perfect wife, the dedicated mother, the successful career woman, to crumble around her, and for her to know that I was the architect of its ruin. This wasn't just about revenge on a cheating spouse, this was about justice. The key, I realized, wasn't just Sarah. It was the ecosystem that enabled her. Chloe. Mark. Even our families, who adored her. I needed to understand the entire network. I hired a private investigator. It felt cliché, but necessary. His name was Derek, a gruff ex-cop with no-nonsense eyes. I gave him the basics, The photos I had, the names. He didn't flinch. Standard stuff, he'd said. I'll have something for you in a week. That week was the longest of my life. Derek's updates were clinical, factual. Photos of Sarah and Mark having lunch, their bodies angled towards each other intimately. GPS data showing her car parked for hours at an apartment in a swanky downtown building, Mark's apartment, as it turned out. The PI even managed to get audio from a nearby table at a restaurant, a snippet of conversation that would haunt me forever. I played it back in my car, alone. Sarah's laugh, light and airy. Then Mark's voice, low and confident. Tired of the secrets, Sarah? I want you with me. All the time. A pause. Then Sarah. I know, my love. Soon. The kids, and Mike, he's just so fragile right now. I need to do this carefully. Fragile. The word hit me like a physical blow. She was pitying me. The man she was betraying was, in her eyes, a fragile thing to be managed, not a partner to be respected. That audio clip sealed her fate. Any lingering doubt about my course of action evaporated. It was around this time that the first test of my resolve came. My mother-in-law, Carol, called. Sarah's mother, a sweet woman who had always treated me like a son. Mike, honey, how are you? She asked, her voice full of warmth. We haven't seen you all in ages. We've been busy, Carol, I said, forcing cheer into my voice. You know how it is. Well, we're having a family barbecue on Sunday. Sarah's sister is in town. You have to come. We need to see those grandbabies. A family gathering. Smiling, shaking hands with her father, playing catch with my son in the backyard while my wife exchanged secret glances with her lover. The thought was unbearable. But it was also an opportunity. We'll be there, I said. The barbecue was a special kind of hell. Sarah was radiant, the center of attention. She flitted between family members, laughing, hugging, the perfect daughter, the perfect aunt. She kept touching my arm, my back, a performative display of affection for her family. Each touch felt like a brand. Her father, Frank, a retired engineer, pulled me aside while I was manning the grill. She's something else, isn't she? He said, nodding towards Sarah, who was twirling our daughter, Lily, in the air. You're a lucky man, Mike. I looked at him, at the genuine pride in his eyes, and I felt a pang of something unexpected, not guilt, but a profound sadness for the pain that was coming his way. He had no idea that the daughter he was so proud of was living a double life. I am Frank, I said, my voice thick. I know exactly what I have. Later, as we were packing the kids into the car, Sarah's phone buzzed on the picnic table. She was saying goodbye to her sister. I glanced down. A text preview flashed on the screen. Mark, miss you already. Today was torture. Can you talk tonight? The world narrowed to that little screen. The audacity of it. Texting her lover from her parents' backyard, surrounded by the family she was betraying. I felt the cold anger rise, but I swallowed it down. I didn't say a word. When she picked up the phone, she quickly tucked it into her purse, a faint blush on her cheeks. The ride home was silent. The kids fell asleep in the back. I could feel the tension radiating from Sarah. She knew I'd seen something. The careful facade was getting harder to maintain. Mike, she said softly, as I pulled into our driveway. Is everything okay? You've been quiet. I turned off the engine and looked at her in the dim light of the garage. This was it. A crossroads. I could confront her. I could scream and cry and demand to know why. But that would be her game. Her drama. I was playing a longer game. I'm just tired, Sarah, I said, my voice a monotone. It's been a long week. I saw the relief flood her features. She thought she dodged a bullet. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Let's get the kids to bed. That night, after the house was quiet, I went into my home office, the one room that was truly mine, and I opened a new document. I began to write. I wrote down everything. The date of the hotel discovery. The photos. the audio transcript, the text message I saw. I documented it all with the precision of an architect drafting a blueprint. This document was my foundation. My plan was taking shape. The following Monday, I went to see a lawyer. Not a friendly divorce attorney, but a ruthless litigator named Ms. Vance, known for her tactical brilliance in high-stakes separations. I laid out my evidence. She listened, her expression unreadable. "This is compelling," she said finally, tapping the file folder. "With this, we can dictate the terms. Full custody, favorable spousal support, the house. You'll be in a very strong position." I shook my head. "It's not just about the terms, Ms. Vance." She raised an eyebrow. "Then what is it about?" "It's about the narrative," I said. "I don't want this buried in a private settlement. I want everyone to know. Her family. His company. Our friends. I want the truth to be unavoidable." A slow smile spread across Ms. Vance's face. "Ah. You want a spectacle. I want the truth," I corrected her. "And I want it delivered in a way that she can never, ever spin to her advantage." We devised a strategy. We would wait for a specific moment. A moment of maximum exposure. The company's annual gala was in 3 weeks. A black tie event where spouses were expected. Where Sarah would be on Mark's arm, in public, playing her part. It was perfect. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in surreal patience. I was a ghost in my own life, watching the final act of a play I was about to cancel. Sarah became more brazen. She took work calls on the patio at night, her laughter floating through the screen door. She bought a new, expensive dress for the gala, modeling it for me. "What do you think?" she asked, spinning around. "You look beautiful," I said, and for a second I meant it. She was the woman I'd loved. But the woman standing before me was a stranger in a beautiful dress. "Mark will be impressed." The words hung in the air. Her smile froze for a fraction of a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that it's a work event," I said innocently. "You want to impress the boss, right?" She searched my face, but I kept my expression blank. The seed of doubt was planted. The ground was becoming unstable beneath her feet, and she was starting to feel it. The night of the gala arrived. Sarah was a vision of nervous energy. She spent hours getting ready. I put on my tuxedo, the uniform for the betrayed husband. I felt calm. Resolved. This was the endgame. "You sure you don't mind me going alone?" she asked, applying her lipstick in the hallway mirror. "I feel bad you have to stay with the kids." "It's fine," I said. "I'm not really in the mood for a party anyway. And the party is about to be ruined, I thought." She kissed the kids goodbye, gave me a quick, distracted peck on the cheek, and floated out the door, a queen off to her coronation. I watched her taillights disappear down the street. Then I went upstairs and put on a different suit. I called the babysitter. My own night was just beginning. I had a front row seat to the final act of my wife's double life. And I was about to pull back the curtain for everyone. It's in these quiet moments before the storm that you question everything. Was I becoming a monster? Was this path of destruction worth it? Subscribe for more of this real-life cheating story, because what happened next, it changed everyone involved forever. The Grand Regency Hotel ballroom was everything you'd expect. Crystal chandeliers, soft jazz from a live band, the clink of champagne glasses, and the low hum of polished conversation. I stood near the back, partially obscured by a large floral arrangement, a ghost at his own funeral. From here, I had a perfect view of the head table. There they were. Mark, holding court, his hand resting possessively on the back of Sarah's chair. And my wife, laughing at something he said, her hand touching his arm. She was glowing. She looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. A part of me, the part that still loved the memory of her, broke all over again. The other part, the cold, calculated architect of this evening, felt a grim satisfaction. Let her have this last, beautiful moment. It was about to be her last. My lawyer, Ms. Vance, had been impeccable. She'd secured an invitation for me through a client on the events planning committee. She'd also arranged for a process server, a large, impassive man named Gene, to be stationed near the exit. But the confrontation wasn't for him. That was for later. The first part of the plan was about public shame. The CEO of the company, a dignified man in his 60s named Robert Higgins, took to the podium for his annual speech. He talked about company values, integrity, teamwork. The irony was so thick you could taste it. I took a deep breath. It was time. As Robert finished to polite applause, the event coordinator, a flustered-looking woman with a headset, approached the podium and whispered something to him. He looked confused, then nodded. This was Ms. Vance's doing. A special presentation had been slipped into the agenda. The large screens flanking the podium, which had been displaying a slideshow of company achievements, went dark for a second. A murmur went through the crowd. Then my document appeared. Not the whole thing, just the first page, with a title in large, bold font, a statement of betrayal. The room fell silent. I saw Mark lean forward, squinting. Sarah's smile had vanished, replaced by a look of dawning horror. She recognized the font, the formatting. She knew. Then, the slides began to advance. Automatically. Click. A photo of the Alexander Hotel, timestamped. Click. A close-up of the silver charger and the turquoise bracelet. Click. A screenshot of the text message from the barbecue. Miss you already. Today was torture. Gasps rippled through the audience. People began to look from the screen to Mark and Sarah. Her face was chalk white. Mark half rose from his chair, saying something to the CEO, who was now staring at the screen with a look of thunderous disapproval. But the coup de grace was the audio. Ms. Vance had spliced it perfectly. Sarah's voice, clear as a bell, filled the ballroom. I know, my love. Soon. The kids, and Mike, he's just so fragile right now. I need to do this carefully. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Then chaos. Sarah shot up from her chair, her hand flying to her mouth. She scanned the crowd frantically, her eyes wild. And they found me. Standing in the back, watching her. The look on her face, the sheer, unadulterated terror, the shame, the realization, was everything I had imagined. It was a shocking discovery for everyone in that room, but for her, it was an annihilation. I didn't wait for the aftermath. I turned and walked out, the stunned silence breaking into a roar of whispers behind me. I had done what I came to do. The truth was no longer a secret. I stood up, turning on a lamp. The light illuminated her devastation. How could I do that to you? My voice was quiet, dangerously calm. You've been lying to me for months, Sarah. You lied to our families. You made a fool of me in front of our entire world. I just returned the favor. We could have talked, she sobbed, collapsing onto the sofa. We could have worked it out. This was cruel. Talking? I laughed, a harsh, empty sound. When was I supposed to talk? Before or after your dates with Mark? During your work emails? You didn't want to talk, Sarah. You wanted your stable home and your exciting affair. You didn't leave me any room for conversation. You only left room for this. The next few days were a whirlwind. Mark was fired. The scandal rocked the small corporate world of our city. Sarah was a pariah. She moved out, staying with a reluctant Chloe, who, it turned out, had been her chief alibi provider. Then, the begging started. Just as the title promised. First, it was Chloe calling me, her voice shrill. Mike, you have to forgive her. People make mistakes. This revenge, it's not you. Then, her parents. Carol was in tears on the phone. Mike, please. She's devastated. She's our daughter. Think of the children. Forgive her. For the family. Even my own mother called. Son, I know what she did was wrong. Unforgivable. But this public humiliation, is this really the man I raised? What about forgiveness versus revenge in marriage? Can you find it in your heart to be the bigger person? Everyone begged me to forgive her. They painted me as the villain, the one who had gone too far. My revenge on my cheating spouse had been too effective, too public. They wanted a quiet, private pain, something that could be swept under the rug. But I had ripped the rug away entirely. Through my lawyer, Sarah offered everything. She would go to counseling. She would quit her job. She would do anything to save the marriage. But it was too late. The marriage wasn't just broken, it had been dismantled, brick, by both of us. The divorce proceedings were swift. With the evidence I had, I got primary custody of the kids. The house. A fair settlement. The court recognized the profound breach of trust. But winning in court felt hollow. The real battle was for my soul, and for my children's future. The most important conversation I had was with my children. I sat them down, Lily, who was 7, and Ben, who was 5. I didn't give them the ugly details. I simply said, Mommy and Daddy love you more than anything in the whole world. But we can't live together anymore. We both made some big mistakes, and we need to live apart to be the best parents we can be for you. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But it was the truth, stripped of the poison. A year has passed now. The dust has settled. Sarah lives in an apartment across town. She sees the kids on weekends. It's civil, but strained. The broken marriage drama is over, replaced by the quiet, difficult work of co-parenting. Sometimes I think about what I did. Was it right? Was it wrong? I don't know. I know that the man who followed his wife to that hotel wouldn't have recognized the man who orchestrated the gala revelation. The betrayal changed me. It hardened me. But it also freed me. I'm not living a lie anymore. The pain was excruciating, but it was honest pain. I've started dating again, tentatively. I'm rebuilding not just a life, but a self that can trust again. The moral of my real-life cheating story? Betrayal isn't just a single act. It's a cascade of choices that shatter lives. And the response to it, whether it's revenge or forgiveness, that's a cascade of choices, too. I chose my path. It was messy, it was ugly, and some will say it was unforgivable itself. But I sleep at night. I look at my children, who are happy and adjusting, and I know that I protected them from a life built on a foundation of secrets. I gave them the truth, as brutal as it was. And in the end, for me, that was the only form of forgiveness I could find, forgiving myself for not seeing the truth sooner, and giving myself the permission to build a new life, an authentic one, out of the rubble of the old. So if you're asking me if I regret what I did, my answer is complicated. But if you're asking me if I'd do it again, knowing the pain it would cause, to expose a lie that big, that destructive? Yeah. I would. Because sometimes, the truth isn't just a weapon. It's the only foundation strong enough to build a future on. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, anger, sadness, maybe even agreement, then share your thoughts down in the comments. What would you have done when everyone begged you to forgive? And subscribe for more stories that delve into the real, raw, and complicated truths of relationships. Thanks for listening.